Hey guys, welcome to another movie review. Today I'm going to be talking about a remake of a 1979 film that was also a heist comedy called Going in Style. This film is directed by Zach Braff, who also worked it on Garden State and Wish I Was Here. He also acted in films like Oz the Great and Powerful. He was in the show Scrubs. He's been involved with a couple of many things. Um, but this is kind of his first big studio film that he's worked on as a director. Not really. This is probably one of his more bigger budget films that he's worked on as a director because the other stuff he's worked on was more so like smaller things for himself. This is, like I said, is like his first big studio project. But like I said, this is a remake of an older film that once starred George Burns, but also has a similar concept. And so what this film is about is it's about these three retired friends that really aren't doing anything. They just kind of watch TV all day and just kind of have these little routines. They go to the same diner all the time and stuff. And so they're waiting for this financial plan to come in that their previous employer has promised them so that they can kind of retire peacefully and have money and not have to worry about working anymore and so forth. And they can finally spend time with their grandkids and, do the stuff that they've always been doing and always have money on the side for sure for other things. So they later find out that this financial plan that they were once promised isn't going to go through. This company is going to give that money to a different country to further their business and so forth. So they're basically screwed over as far as getting, this 401k retirement money that this company has promised them. And so they try to work it out with the bank, and the bank's kind of uncooperative about it too. So one of them one day has the idea, since they recently saw a robbery happen in front of their own eyes, is what if we try to organize our own bank robbery and get that money ourselves, the money that our own company has once promised us. We'll go to the very bank that we go to a lot. And since we saw it happen before, we're going to try the same robbery to get that money that we were promised. And we get to see that play out and see how they can get away with it if they can. And so, because they're almost, on their way out, they're retired. They figure, if things go wrong, we'll just rot in prison for a couple years and die. We won't have to spend numerous years in prison like a young person would for something like this. So basically, they have very few things to lose, and they really want to pull off this final bank heist before their time is up as human beings. So overall, guys, I really like this film a lot. It's very fun. I never really had anything against Zach Braff. There's just a lot of things that he might have worked on every once in a while that I wasn't a huge fan of. Like, I wasn't a huge fan of Garden State, but I liked, some films that he's worked on, like Oz the Great and Powerful and so forth. So he's made a couple of stuff and has been involved with a couple of stuff that I've liked for the most part. But Going in Style, I think, is his first film as a director that I've really enjoyed quite a bit. And like I said, it's just a very fun film throughout. So for my positives and negatives of Going in Style, Michael Caine, Morgan Freeman, and Alan Arkin, who are the lead stars of the film, they have great screen team chemistry in this movie. They just absolutely use the big screen to their full advantage when they're in this movie. They just work very well as a team. They're very funny. They know how to really give a lot of laughs to the audience and just really make sure that you're having fun with this movie, because they seem to be having a lot of fun themselves. So, like I said, Michael Caine, Morgan Freeman, and Alan Arkin just really know how to work this movie and how to really make sure that the material's working the best it possibly can. And it's just a fun screen chemistry to see for this movie. I also liked how the three lead characters kind of have their own little routines in this movie. They go to the same diner, they go to the same place, they argue about the same stuff, they always go to the grocery store for the same thing. It's just really funny little routines that they have in this movie that really add an additional humor to this movie. And like I was saying at the beginning of the review, this is just a very fun film. It's just so fun to watch. It's so fun to see these characters just having a blast, just living their life to the fullest. If this is the big last final thing that we see these people do in the final time of their life here, they're just trying to live it up the best they can. It's so fun to watch. So Zach Braff really made sure that he made a very fun film here. And I also liked how this is kind of the first heist film I've seen that really has a lot of heart to it. There's even a part when they're organizing this whole bank robbery thing, and I was like, well, look, the second we get the money that our company would have given to us originally, I want to be done with the robbery. Let's just go. Let's just give this money that we've been promised and just get out of there. And if we get away with it, we get away with it. And if we don't, we don't. If we get shot down on sight, we get shot down on sight. So there's just, it just has a sense of heart to it. It's like, look, we're going to do this really horrible thing for about 2 minutes. But once the 2 minutes are over, once we have our money, we're just going to be done. We're going to disappear. We're going to just live our lives the way we should have with this company, with this money that we should have gotten. Let's just get out of there, be with our families, just be there for them for our final time here. So I liked how this was a heist film that really had a sense of heart to it as well. Ann-Margret is in this film, and her performance is very funny. She definitely pokes fun at Alan Arkin's character a lot. Alan Arkin is very attracted to this woman, and so there's a lot of humor with that. Uh, Ann-Margret herself is aware of just how attractive she is to Alan Arkin and so forth. So they really play around with that. They play around with what eventually happens with her and Alan Arkin and so forth. So just a very fun performance from her. Very much in the spirit of what she once did for Grumpy Old Men. So I think that's what I liked about the roles. It reminded me very much of what she did in Grumpy Old Men. And so if you liked her performance in that, it's definitely a nod to that role that she once had. I also liked how these characters are very developed and very interesting characters. They're characters I can really feel invested in. I can kind of understand their mission. Even when we're not with characters like Alan Arkin, Michael Caine, or Morgan Freeman, even the granddaughter of Michael Caine and the family of Morgan Freeman and, Ann-Margret's character and just these people that they're always interacting with throughout the course of the film. Zach Braff always finds a way to make sure that these characters feel developed and interesting and that they serve a purpose within this story. And even when we're not with some of these characters for maybe as long as we might want to be, Zach Braff really makes sure that these characters really do feel developed and interesting and that we feel invested in what these characters are up to throughout the course of the movie. I also like all these little smaller heists that these older people do before they go and do this big bank robbery. It's just really fun to see them try to rob like a grocery store or just a gas station or something that's really, really minor and small. It's just so funny to see them do this really horrible thing to the small store, and it's just so much fun to watch. And Zach Braff films it in such a fun, funny way and a fun way as well. It's just so much fun. I can't really express that enough. This is such a fun film to watch, and when we see these smaller heists go down, it's just so funny to watch. But for my negatives of Going in Style, I thought the final big bank robbery heist that the film builds up to so much, it feels a little sloppy once we finally get there. The jokes don't feel as strong as, like I said, those smaller heists or the parts of Ann-Margret or the smaller routines that we had earlier on in the movie with these characters. So for being this big event that the film really just builds up and builds up and builds up, once we finally get there, it either feels too typical, too predictable, or just not quite as funny as those things we saw earlier on in the movie. There's also a bank employee who shows up at the beginning of the film who's fine for that opening scene or two. If that was the only parts he was in, I would have been fine. But unfortunately, he shows up near the end of the movie again, and he's just really gets on my nerves by then. He's just this really annoying bank employee that Michael Caine always encounters throughout the movie. So just very annoying. Whether Zach Braff didn't direct him correctly or this actor didn't know how to handle this character, or the character just wasn't written too well, whatever the scenario would have been. It's just a very annoying character that really could have been written better and performed better and possibly directed better because I just really didn't like this character. Everybody else was so likable in the film except this one bank employee character. I just really did not like him. There's also a lot of hit and miss jokes for all those parts that are really funny. There's a lot of other jokes in here that just kind of miss the mark. They're just kind of disposable, non-memorable jokes in some points. But like I said, when the jokes hit, they really do hit. And that really goes, the credit really goes to Michael Caine, Morgan Freeman, and Alan Arkin. These three men really know what they're doing here. Christopher Lloyd has a role in this film too, and it's fun to see him do all this, old people stuff too. So for being, this person who was once famous in Back to the Future. He's finally in this movie, and he's a lot of fun to watch as well. So overall, I'm going to give Going in Style 8.5 out of 10. When it works well, it really works well. Of course, Michael Caine, Morgan Freeman, and Alan Arkin just give great screen chemistry in this movie. There's just so many great things I can say about it. But like I said, that big bank heist was a little too sloppy for being built up so much in this movie. That annoying bank employee just really got on my nerves after a while. And there are a couple hit and miss jokes over the course of the movie. So 8.5 out of 10. I highly recommend it. It's not a film I absolutely loved, but for when it works, it really works well. And obviously, when there's a couple little things that go wrong, you forgive it for all the things that go right with it. So 8.5 out of 10. I highly recommend Going in Style.